Hello everybody and welcome to the Isolation Conversation with me, Mark Stokes, a series of videos designed to discuss all things digital whilst working remotely in isolation. This week we're talking about the Power Platform and isolation. I'm going to be joined by Kent, Keith and Sara, and we're going to talk about everything you need to know about working in isolation and how the Power Platform can help you rapidly develop applications to cope with the current situation. Without further ado, let's dive right in. Hi everyone, thank you for joining us. So I'm here with Keith, Kent and Sara. So I'll go around and we can do some introductions. So just tell me who you are, who you work for, what you do, and maybe something new that you've learned in the last week, and then we'll get into the conversation. So who wants to go first?
I do. So my name is Sara Lagerquist. I'm a Power Platform architect, and I work for a small company in Sweden called CRM-Konsulterna. Something new I learned this week was that you can use the shift functionality in Teams to utilize it to book like seats in your office, because we have a limit of only being 6 in the office at the same time. So now we can use shifts and just like, I'm going in on Tuesday, I'm going in on Wednesday, so we're never too crowded.
Well, that's cool. Kent, do you want to go next?
Sure. Yes. Hi. So my name's Kent Weir. I work on the PowerCat team at Microsoft. So that's the customer advisory team, where I focus on Power Automate and Power Virtual Agents. And I think this week what I've learned is I learned how to take an Azure bot framework skill and plug it into Power Virtual Agents. And what I did learn as part of that process is how simple it is to do the same thing in Power Automate. And so I'm definitely going to go there first every single time.
Nice. I'm loving Power Virtual Agents. It's changed the bot framework so much. It's cool. And Keith?
I'm Keith Whatling. I don't claim to be anywhere near as good as being able to do the bot framework, but I did do augmented reality this week twice in 25 minutes. That was cool. And I managed to build a little app to see if a great big box would fit through a door or not. And it did, which was cool.
Bonus.
But the video I did for the customer that I was demoing it to, I forgot I had my pajamas on. I was walking around with no feet, with not no feet. That would be really weird. With no shoes on. So I got my my dirty mud-stained feet because I've been walking out in the back garden, and I was just like, oh, I forgot about that bit. So yeah, good week.
Nice. I do wonder how many people have done these sessions with questionable garments on the bottom half. To be fair, so. Yeah,
or none.
I'm wearing shorts in a minute, so I'm pretending to be smart, so I totally get that.
We have no idea how many of us in this recording has pants on.
I know.
Or trousers.
Yeah. Who knows? Anything good. And this is kind of part of the new normal, isn't it, really? Is actually, I kind of go straight into the conversation we've had before, is about actually the way that people communicate and collaborate and work now. The fact that one thing that keeps coming up is people having videos turned on more. And actually, there's a new etiquette now. People don't want to use video before they do now. So I'll put a shirt on. Normally customers are more comfortable wearing casual clothes, and customers are okay with that because you're working from home. So I try and smarten up a little bit. But yeah, a lot of that's changed, I think, lately.
I think the one thing I'd love to change more than anything else, like I gesticulate a lot, right? And when I'm gesticulating and I'm kind of saying, I say to someone, oh, it was here and it went to here and it goes below the camera. And I really need to be able to take that little Teams box and put it right under where my webcam is.
Yeah, absolutely. That's it. I've got a fairly wide angle camera, I think. So, but Teams kind of focuses on you as well, doesn't it? It kind of focuses on where your face is and moves around. So, yeah.
Also, I've found that so Teams has got 2 really cool functions that I found this week. So Control Shift and M mutes, right? Yeah. And I've had a conveyor belt of food coming into my room, and it naturally accumulates in certain pockets of your body, and those pockets release occasionally. And a rapid mute is a very happy experience. And when you're in chat, did you know that if you press up twice, you can edit the last message you sent, right? So if you're in chat and you're smashing the keys and your fingers are like exhausted and you're just typing crap, you can quickly boom, boom, edit the last one.
Interesting. Wow. So in Teams as well. So I just recently explored the Teams admin panel and realised that we could turn on Giphy. So we finally enabled GIFs in our business. That's just gone nuts. But I also discovered the policies as well. So we managed to disable GIFs for one person only, and they just had a frantic craze of why everyone could post GIFs, but they couldn't. And they're the one who really wanted to post GIFs. So yeah, so I'm spending more time. I also found that having an Excel spreadsheet open in Microsoft Teams destroys the spreadsheet and recreates it somehow on save, or it appears to. So when you access that Excel spreadsheet in Power Automate, it loses the table name and your Power Automate breaks. That's something I found. I'm not tied down exactly why, but that was an interesting one. So that's some good things. So anyway, kind of go back to, so just tell us a little bit about what's going on. So we're all in this situation now where we're all working from home, maybe worked from home before. So through all of you, just tell me a little bit about how your businesses are going, how your customers are going, what's going on in the world right now with where you're at.
I've never worked from home before. It's not very common in Sweden in general. You go to the office. Then probably you heard that we have quite different lockdown strategy than the rest of the world. So we are recommended to work from home, and I've been home for most weeks, like 8 weeks now. But I'm starting to feel that I might actually should use that Sweden is not that locked down and go into the office once in a while, because I'm getting a bit mental being at home this much.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. So a lot of people we've had on the previous episodes have largely been remote workers, home workers anyway, a few people who are typically office-based. So one of the big factors that we tend to talk about quite a lot is that transition from being an office-based worker, a social environment, to working from home, and how that effective that is, and how difficult that is on the mental health and cabin fever as well. So yeah, I think we'll come back and approach that transition from office to home. That's a huge thing for a lot of people. So yeah, but actually it's interesting you're saying Sweden has some slightly different rules on as well, where it's not quite as locked down as recommended. So it is quite nice. My wife had to have a trip to the office to do a video where she was socially distant with her colleague, but this is like the most exciting thing that's ever happened, like the trip out to the office for one day. But it's done wonders for her personal mental health and how she is.
It did. I was in once last week, and it gave me like a boost of energy. That's when I realized that I have to go in like at least once a week now, just to get that energy from meeting people again. Yeah,
definitely. So Ken, from your side then, how are you seeing kind of work and business and customers? As you know, is there a big turn down in business? Has everyone disappeared because they're all furloughed, or are you seeing kind of an increase in business because of the technology that we have?
I'd see, a bit of both, right? We've certainly seen some customers where their projects have been paused or put on hold, and then we've also seen naturally with the need to do more things remote, and obviously the Power Platform lending itself to being democratized in a cloud-based service without deep ties to infrastructure in a data center. We've seen some of those projects emerge as well. So it's kind of a bit of both, I would say, at this point in time for us as we're sort of helping different customers. I'd say we're still very busy, though. There's still a lot of things going on, and the world is still moving. Even though there are challenges that we've all encountered, and certainly there's some headwinds ahead, I would say.
Yeah, I think we've echoed that. So we've kind of seen a bit of a balance in that in our company so far, where some people are delaying because they're not in the office, and other people are rapidly coming forward with the projects to facilitate it. So I think it kind of has largely balanced in the middle somewhere for us. So Keith, how about you? How's business your side, and what kind of things are you working on at the moment?
Well, I mean, Power Platform wise, it's just kind of gone a bit crazy, really. I mean, just tons of stuff going on. It seems that there's a number of customers and companies out there who are using downtime to do stuff that traditionally is a little bit more risky. So, definitely an upturn in people pushing ERP forward, pushing go live, get it in now whilst the business is shut down, really test it out. It's an ideal situation for a lot of things, and it also, I see a lot of people no longer procrastinating, right? So a lot of stories I've heard from the communities, a lot of stories I've seen and talking to friends have been around companies kind of like adopting, let's say, Power Platform in my particular instance, because it's they've got some downtime and they can do it, and there's also using it to facilitate COVID response. So a huge number of apps spinning up around that for sure. Even the Hack for Good at the weekend saw a number of entries of people building apps for the return to new normal. And I think that's quite wonderful, and it plays to that old Power App story from Nick Gill and the American Red Cross, where they built an app for the hurricane when it was about to arrive, and then sort of kept some of it, deleted it, and all the rest of it. And I think those transient nature of Power Apps and the Power Platform, where there is no way on God's green earth that you'll find someone deleting code or deleting an app. Right? Like it took months to build this thing. Like we don't turn it off, like it stays forever, and 20 years later you're calling it ERP and you need a UI flow to work around it. But this is very much like it's microscopic, and you're deleting a Power App like you delete an Excel spreadsheet. And they're there for a time and they serve their purpose, and they go. Some of them stay forever, but I think largely that's why it's been such a success for Power Platform and COVID as a whole. I think it's also been a tremendous success for the community as well. The Hack for Good at the weekend being one thing, but I called this out in a call earlier on today. A wonderful Power Apps maker called Georgia. She's at a company called Schlumberger. She's the girl who put together the original COVID crisis communicator app. They gifted that to Microsoft. Microsoft rebuilt it. It's a very complicated Power App that they've put out there in the community, and a lot of people are having to start from scratch, which exposes why there's been a lot of app in a days. But it's been awesome to see the uptake, and it's brilliant, really, really good. So just so much going on, difficult to switch off really.
I think that's really interesting. There's two key points there. I think the first one, it kind of leads straight into, I guess, the meat and the bones of what we'd be thinking about here, is the fact that the Power Apps as a rapid application development platform just does let people do things quick. And I think we'll probably explore this a little bit further as we talk today. But compared to traditional code projects that we know that we can turn things out quick. There's a few questions around that, actually, I'll bring up later on, but I'll kind of hold them for a bit now. And I think the other one you said, the other point you made there is around the new normal. So actually taking some of these initiatives that people are doing now, but then actually keeping them for the longer term. So one of the things that we've done is every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 3:00, we send a card using Flow through Teams to everyone in the business. It's basically, how are you feeling today, 1 to 10? When did you last go out for some exercise? Later in the week, and a little comment, how you feeling. It's purely optional. Obviously, it's personal data, people can go in there, but we encourage people to just feed back to us how they're feeling. So then, because people are so far away, we don't get that same input we get if they're in the office. So we can't tell if somebody's struggling, so they don't always tell you. So just every day, it's up to them to be honest, and to reach out if they need to. But we're a very close family anyway in the business. So, but the question is that just something rapid to roll out and use now, or actually is that something that's going to be beneficial for the new normal? Just every so often, just, how you doing? Bit meh, all right, not bad, great, struggling. Is that something that we should just carry on doing? And I think the new normal is a big thing there.
Yeah, I think the mental health aspect of it, and companies are certainly worried about their staff. It certainly put the human spin on things. I mean, my firm, like, I was so proud of what they did that they shut down way before it became like required to shut down. Like, it was the right thing to do when we did it, and the communications to the everyone's been so supportive. You know, the customers, everybody. Like, it's just been awesome. So we've been sort of locked down for 3 or 4 weeks longer than everybody else. Voluntary though it was, like, to stay away, it was like, you know, we did it. But I think maybe not those things will stay the way they are, but I think they'll evolve. I think people will use them more and more. I think that, like, that how you feeling Teams card, I mean, you can see that being used in projects. Like, you could see that, like, how was your week? You know, how do you feel it went at the end of the week? That the micro survey, just those little granular bits of information. Is there anything you wish you'd done this week? You know, if you're thinking about an agile thing, you know, what was just, you know, did this stand up go well? Did this, you know, companies now live and die on their data. There's a potential there to do a lot of things. And it's no longer the proviso of a very highly skilled technology company. Now it's been democratized. And I think it's now more than ever that you see companies going, actually, there's something going on here. There certainly seems to be a massive clamour for technology in the last couple of months. I mean, if you talk to LinkedIn, they'll tell you that, like, the number of searches for technology courses on their LinkedIn learning site is absolutely through the roof. So, yeah.
Yeah, seeing a lot of people going into training and things like that and using spare time to upskill, that's good. So, Sarah, from your point of view then, so from being predominantly office-based to being at home, is your company, or are you seeing people doing similar things to kind of help people who are used to being in the office? Because if you're less used to being working from home, are you seeing anything or not, you know, as well?
Well, we're a small company. We're only 20 people, so we haven't implemented anything like that. We do have like a ongoing Teams meeting where we can have coffee together, but mostly it's about my boss checking in a lot, and she's like, do you want us to rent you a desk for your home? Because, like, not many of us have offices at home. I still work from my sofa, which I know is the worst thing you can do, but I'm still doing it. And, like, telling us that, okay, if you want to go in and you don't want to go by train because that's a more risky place to be, take the car, we'll pay for your parking. Like, just let us know what you need to feel good about it. But yeah, it's like most of us, we are not used to this at all. So there's a lot of talk about like, how can we decrease the meetings? I know that we miss the everyday interaction we have in the office, where we can just, like, oh, by the way, how would you design this? Or have you heard of this thing? Or have you done this? And that is all turning into calls and meetings. And I'm going insane by it. I haven't been able to cope with it that well. I get nothing done, pretty much. So we're talking about how we can decrease that kind of interaction and how we can make it more efficient. Yeah. That's
really interesting, because if you're in the office, people can judge if you're being constantly interrupted. They say, oh, do you know what? 5 people have been over to ask Sara a question, so maybe I'm just going to leave it to get on with it. But actually, when you're at home, we find exactly the same. We're constantly getting bombarded. Someone will just send you a message because they don't realise you spent the last 2 hours talking to someone else and then talking to somebody else. But I really, really like the idea, and it's come up before, it's something we've done actually as well, is just leaving that Teams chat open for, like, the morning. So you may be not having a conversation or a meeting, but everyone in the team's just there, and you can have a quick chat or a quick thing, or you get that, you feel like you're closer to someone as well. That's something that's been really, really useful for us, and something we're trying to do more. I love that idea, and we've seen that. So,
but also, again, I feel like that part is like, in the beginning, everyone was there at 11 sharp and 3 o'clock sharp. And now I'm not sure if even 2 people out of 20 shows up, because, like, I think you've seen it in the community too. There's been, like, tons of stuff going on, like, oh, we meet here every day, or blah, blah. And now there's, like, is someone coming? Is someone showing up? So yeah, it's hard to keep up with those routines too.
Totally.
I think once a week, like, we've got a meeting. Oh, sorry, I was going to say we've got a pub that we go to once a week. Not every night, once a week on a Thursday. And, you know, like, my family's really pleased that I have that one social event a week, and it's in my diary, in my calendar. I think the most difficult bit working from home for me personally is exactly what Sara said, which is, you know, the cacophony of interruptions. It's great, you know, like, don't get me wrong, I love it. But it's almost like you need to top and tail it and say 11 till 3, I'm in my communication phase. And then everything outside of that, I'm being productive. I'm doing stuff. I've had to shift being productive to after 9 o'clock when the kids have gone to bed. You know, because I can't. If you're concentrating on something that's fairly complicated, all those micro distractions of the kids running up and down the hallway pretending to be Sonic the Hedgehog is hard. You know.
Yeah. Absolutely. You probably hear mine in the background, maybe the back, so they're kind of running crazy now after the nursery. But so, came from a larger organisation perspective, then, do you kind of echo what you've seen there and what's been going on with you lot to facilitate that kind of situation?
Yeah. So, like, with me, it's kind of interesting in the sense that, like, I joined a new organization during all of this, right? So in Canada, we started to shut things down back in like March 13th, and I was still working for my previous company for a few weeks, and we were working from home and working through that transition. And then you start a new job, you know, with a new company. And so that's been pretty unique. And certainly, you know, with my role, as I'm based in Canada, working with the team that's basically in Seattle and Bellevue and Advanta campus. And so typically when you join Microsoft, even if you're remote, you're going to go and spend a week getting to know a lot of people and, you know, just spending a lot of face time with those colleagues. And so that's been interesting this time around, where all of that has been remote. And so it is interesting to work with a team that's predominantly used to like being in the office, working shoulder to shoulder, shipping these new services. And then now everyone is doing that from a distributed manner, right? Where they're all on teams. So in some ways, I'm on equal footing with a lot of these folks because we're all in this together and trying to figure this thing out. And I would say, like, yeah, there's definitely, it takes a toll. I think I've seen, especially some colleagues that have younger kids, where it's really a struggle to try to balance things, like, you know, help them with their education, but even just some things, it's difficult to get them to focus because they're young, right? Fortunately for us, like our girls are 8 and 10, so they've been awesome. Like I really give them kudos because they've done well. Much better than I would have thought they would have. So they've been awesome with all things considered, but it has been an interesting transition for a lot of people. And we've done some things that have been suggested. We do have the water cooler, which is basically like a Teams meeting that just never ends, and people can jump in there and chit chat. And, you know, they've been sharing recipes and talking about what they've been doing on the weekend and those sorts of things. So we definitely take time out for that. Another thing that Microsoft's been really focused on is checking in on your people, right? Making sure you have your one-on-ones and are you know, looking into the human side of things. Are people okay? Are there anything that you can do to help support during this transition? And so Microsoft's been really focused from that perspective. We also start to see some happy hours, even in like the org that we have. There's a you know, a bi-weekly happy hour. We've done some things informally ourselves as well, and that's been interesting too, where you start to get, you know, multiple happy hours on a Friday, you know, afternoon, or you're kind of like balancing, you know, how do you sort of pick and choose and still connect with people. And I'd say also it's been pretty cool. Just John Levesque's been trying to do things from a Flow fam perspective as well, and trying to bring the community together, which has been pretty cool as well. And there's one of my kids right there sneaking in the background.
Yeah, I think kids' ages makes a big difference. Mine are 4 and 2, so they just require constant attention. Well, attention and refereeing is mainly what goes on. So they just fight like crazy as they do. But yeah, and the thing is, we're both working as well, so we're both trying to do full-time jobs, and it is. So actually, Keith, I echo your comment about doing work late at night. To be fair, my job's very reactive anyway. I'm constantly interrupted through the day because I'm the one that people come to fix problems or help out. So I'm constantly bombarded anyway. So that's kind of normal for me to say, right, I've got this block of work, I'm just going to do it 9 o'clock onwards and get it done. But I think I've seen more people doing unsociable hours or not normal working hours, but to facilitate them. So they can say, do you know what, I'm going to look after my kids through the day, and then I'll do some more hours in the evening to make up. And that's becoming okay. I guess there's some roles that people need to be contactable, but for a lot of places, people are realising maybe we don't judge people's performance based on whether the bum's on a seat, 9 till 6. Maybe there are other ways that we can actually make sure people are delivering as well.
I mean,
I'd say there's some folks just doing the split shift thing, right? Where they will, make it very well known that like they're working, say, early in the morning, then there's a block of time in the afternoon where they're unavailable because they've got other commitments, and then they're finishing up later at night. And so that's something I've seen at Microsoft, and Microsoft's been a very big supporter of trying to find that balance and make it as easy as possible for their employees.
Yeah. So I'll put you on the spot then, Ken. Has Microsoft done anything, or have you guys done anything specifically with the Power Platform to facilitate and enable home working, remote working, or the current situation?
Like internally or just for customers itself?
Well, either. I was going internally. Do people use it? Because we've had a lot of cases where people say, I consult on this stuff all the time, but internally we're doing 50-60% of it. So I'm curious, is Microsoft using the Power Platform, their own tools to do what they say?
Well, I think, so I think there's a couple lenses there. And actually, Keith mentioned this earlier, all of the COVID investments, where Microsoft has really stepped up and sort of embraced this idea and tried to provide tools and guidance for people to actually go out and help run their business. And whether that's chatbots or Power Apps or these templates that exist, I think there's been a lot of investments from that perspective. Certainly, I do see inside of Microsoft, we do use Power Apps quite frequently, just across the board. And so we do sort of drink our own champagne or eat our own dog food, I guess, however you want to look at it. But like, even when we talk about like tracking our check-ins with our folks, that's actually a Power App. So I was sort of pleasantly surprised when I, had to go and check that out. I was like, oh yeah, cool. This is a Canvas app that allows me to go ahead and do that. So yeah, absolutely. I think you're seeing a lot of investment both inside and outside of the organization with respect to Power Platform.
Nice. So Keith, then what kind of apps have you been building around here? You kind of spoke about some before, and have you seen
QUANTIQ have been great at supporting my evening nocturnal activities around my app building. So I just I couldn't sort of stand idly by, got my granddad sitting on the desk there. It keeps me honest and sort of keeps me pushing on. And he would ask anyone during this time, what have you done? What have you done to make a difference? This is your time this is your world in crisis. My world in crisis was 1945. Your world in crisis is now. What have you done to make a difference? So I've been squirreled away in the evening. We put out a couple of tweets and some LinkedIn posts around come if you need help, if you need technology, anyone who's dealing with a crisis, come and tell the community, right? And we've been facilitating those interactions a little bit, handing out a few apps to be built here and there. Difficult though, it's funny because we move in circles that are like birds of a feather flock together, so we don't necessarily have the reach outside of our community. And the biggest problem is we've got too many people who want to help and not enough people to help. So if there's more people who need it, please, do say. But we ended up building a couple of apps for the NHS for just micro things, really tiny things, like they want to spin up an online waiting room. They've got technology to do it, but they've got a stage gate process that they want to go through to get there. So they wanted a little app for that. They got some spreadsheet that comes out they got to fill out every day. That sort of like they've got to email off to the central team that's got like a load of statistics on it and stuff. So we built an app to do that. And this is all community stuff, it makes you stronger. Just that little bit of help every day, and it makes me feel like I'm still out there, doing good. Like I miss the travel to work. There's always a lady when I get off the train in the morning. We get the same train every day. She's always there. She's got 3 kids. A littlest one's in a pushchair. No one wants to help her up the stairs. And I'm like, if it's me who gets the chance that morning, I'm like, yeah, boom, I've done my good deal for the day. And I miss that. I miss that like random acts of kindness. Yeah. So it's nice to still be able to contribute to society in a small way, And it's good for me as well because it keeps me sharp, it keeps me honest, and makes you move outside of those circles. And you know what, right? The best bit of it was I was building one app with this awesome girl at an NHS trust, and she was like, I handed it over and she came back a week later and she said, well, actually, I started mucking around with it and I kind of figured this out and I figured that. And I'm like, right, there's a Power App Maker right there and then. I'm like, right, do you want to do app in a day? Like, here's the app in a day documentation. Like, do that and you can become a Power Apps Maker and you can do all of this awesome stuff. So, it's really important I think, to be part of a community. Like, I see my eldest kid. When this lockdown first happened, like we couldn't get her to do any work, and I thought, well, she's got a brother and sister, she's all right. But then you look at her and she's 10, and that 10 to 6 to 4 is a big age gap, and it was only when we sort of like got her Nintendo Switch thingy, plugged the headset in, and made it so that she could play with her mates and chat to her mates, and all of a sudden she started being able to sit down and concentrate. Because before that, I couldn't get her to do 5 minutes of homework. I couldn't get her to do 5 minutes of schoolwork. She was just rebelling against everything. But as soon as she was allowed to have social interactions again, she became exponentially more capable of doing work. So, yeah, it's been a real eye-opener for me, as a parent as well as a maker of technology.
Well, I love that thought that things don't have to be overly complicated either. So the little apps you talk about doing is the fact, and this is what Power Apps I really like about it, is the fact you can just do something small. It doesn't have to be this big, complex project. Just a quick app out, go and do it. And I think that's one of the biggest powers. So then going on from that then, so from what you're looking at, do you think building Power Platform solutions now is more difficult or easier because of the remote nature of what we're going on, or maybe nature of the platform? Do you see any differences in building apps at the moment compared to normal, or is it business as usual?
Yes, it is different. I almost always insist on spending time one-on-one with the end user, especially if it's a first-line worker app. I think that seeing it in the hands of the user, not through the lens of a manager, is paramount. Like, you can't build a decent app without it. So that's been challenging to understand what that looks like from a remote work standpoint. Although I'd say that making apps for customers is easier because the barriers, the silly things that were stopping them for doing it, their worries, their concerns, they've been largely taken away with do you know what, we just need to crack on and get this done. Yeah. And that has been magical. And if anything comes out of COVID, I hope it's a renewed sense of vigor that we just, as a society, we just need to crack the hell on with it. Because that's how we've come along so far in such a short space of time,
Yeah. Sarah, have you found the same kind of situations or different situations? How have you found kind of building things now compared to before?
Well, I think it's kind of like before. I don't see much difference in work. I see a difference in my energy level, strictly connected to lack of interactions. And I've also been the one who's taking a step back from virtual interactions. I don't think that I haven't given me any energy whatsoever, just taken energy. So I've been kind of going down into myself, not doing what Keith's grandfather would have wanted and helping. I've done nothing. Just been on my couch and yeah, pretty much. Yay.
This is the thing, though, is that everybody's different and everybody deals with this situation differently, don't they? So it's a case of when we're trying to figure out how to support people, we've got to realise that one size doesn't fit all. Not everyone wants to be on that global Teams chat. Some people are maybe more introverted and maybe are more uncomfortable with that because they normally sit there quietly, but they're in the room with people. So we need to bear in mind there are very different types of people. And if people are just happy kind of just taking them down into themselves and that's how they perform best, then fine, we need to allow for that as well. So I think for me, it's exposing is the wrong word. It's making me more aware of people's individual ways of living life, really, the personalities of introverts and extroverts, and it's kind of making that more apparent and obvious, but also more acceptable that different people do want to do things different ways. So,
yeah, and I'd say like I'm probably somewhere in between from that perspective. Like I totally get it with Keith in terms of like that whiteboard. There's like nothing that sort of replaces being like shoulder to shoulder, side by side, and getting that whiteboard and collaborating and working through sort of like the requirements and sort of interactions. And I totally get that. I would say, you know, if you think about like traditional projects that might be done, like where you're doing code, like a lot of heavy code, I think that would be extremely difficult. Like I think the Power Platform with the ability to share and to not have to worry about infrastructure and the fact that I can work, you know, whether it's on my personal machine or, you know, a corporate laptop, I think that's just night and day in terms of like, once you're in the build mode, I think it's much easier to collaborate with your teammates. But I'd say that entry point of like figuring out exactly what we want to do and how would we go about it? And what does that process look like? I think even though there's tools like the whiteboard app in Teams, which is cool, but it's just not the same as sort of being right in the same room. So I think there's puts and takes on that one.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually. I guess that's a good question out to everyone then is, has this situation exposed any areas that need improvement? And I agree with the whiteboard. I agree with a video meeting isn't the same as being in a room. It's good enough and it's better than just voice, but it's still not the same as being in a room. But anything else, is this exposed any other issues? A point that was made before is, you know, if you need to work or get help with somebody, if you're coding, we can kind of code share in Visual Studio and co-work in that way. We don't really have that capability to Power Out. So is that exposed to any areas maybe of the Power Platform that we would like to see improved to make it easier for us to work on them now? For me, it would be that ability to work with a co-worker, share a screen, share an app, and kind of co-collaborate on things like that way. But is there anything else that you've come across you think you would like to see?
Yeah, one thing, man. One thing would change my entire world at the moment, right? And that's not having, like, that's turning around and saying that meetings don't last an hour. Like, it's so easy to time box meetings as half an hour, or because that's what Outlook allows, and Outlook's dictating, or Teams is dictating how long I should spend on a bloody topic. And I want that granular, like, we need 5 minutes on this. And that's all. I don't want it 15 minutes. I don't want a half an hour. I don't want to block my calendar out for that. I massively want that piece of technology that just says that some AI sitting in my meeting that says, it sounds like you're talking crap now. It's time to stop. You know, I got stuff to do. One of you should be doing some work. Yeah,
but again, maybe more now than before. The reason because I find the same, sometimes people just start waffling on the end of a meeting, but I've realised actually it's because they just want to have a bit of a chat.
Yeah,
and they need that. So people are a bit more accommodating of that. So
it's funny, Mark, when you talk to some people and you realise how lucky you are. You're like, you know, there's a number of people I know who are isolating on their own. You know, they've got no, you know, their girlfriend's in one town, their kids are in another town, and they're completely isolated because of age or family and all that kind of stuff. And they need a bit more. You know, they need a little bit more social interaction. They come on and they get involved with a lot of this stuff. So there's that as well.
That's a good point as well. I think we're experiencing something that we see about every Christmas, don't we? Every Christmas on the news, and at least in the UK, we're hearing about people, the elderly suffering from loneliness.
I thought you were going to say people getting
lonely.
fat.
Well, they're just in there, but it's made me really, you know, when you start. I mean, okay, I've got my family around me, which helps. But it makes you realise, even in this state, you think, wow, those people who are just on their own in their house and unable to go out, what that loneliness feels like. But that's forever for them. It's not as short term as we're getting. I think people start to understand and comprehend that more. So maybe as a wider community, we might be a bit more helpful to other people. So that was a slight aside on something kind of unrelated, but I think this is the stuff that's important. And so thinking about being reactive to customers then. So how are we reacting to customers, and again, using the Power Platform to react quicker? What's the benefits there? And again, I don't want to come into the whole conversation of low code, no code, or pro code, things like that. I know, Sarah, we've done that. We've moved on, and I agree, we're all embracing. But again, there are differences to approaches. So we've kind of covered bits of it before about rolling them out quick, but why Power Platform? Why should companies start to embrace it? Loads of companies are nervous before. Is it another info path? We're going to have to delete them all when it goes away. But why Power Platform now, and what benefits can it bring people if they trust it and want to use it? Sarah, I'll let you take that first for how you're thinking.
What we got in a few requests about, which I realize is about improving their customer service. Since I'm a Dynamics gal from the beginning, I like watching what omnichannel can do with chatbots, Power Virtual Agents, and like how much these companies who are getting a load more service requests from different sources, suddenly we can help them quite quickly come up with a web chat too. And I find that amazing how quickly you can do that now.
Do you think companies were nervous about using the Power Platform before, and now they're just like, forget it, just do it and we'll figure it out? Or again, not seeing any difference? And the thing is,
not nervous.
We're all excited about everything being different now, but maybe some things are the same, and that's okay. To have some normality if it is.
I wouldn't say nervous, but finally like seeing value in it in a different light. Like, oh my God, if we just have pushed through this before, we would have been so much more well equipped now. So they see the value and reach out and like, okay, so we planned this a year ahead or 2 years ahead, and we want to go forward now because we see that the quicker we get this implemented, the more benefits we will get from it. So not like in doubt, but more quicker escalated projects.
And I've totally seen that as well. And so this was highlighted in Satya's recently, the call, quarterly review call for the markets, where like Microsoft has been, basically involved in like 2 years of digital transformation in 2 months. And even I've heard that from another customer as well, where this just accelerated their plans. And so I think that's what's going to be interesting to see what's on the other side of this is the mindset that companies do use going forward, where it's like, wait a minute, we don't need to do this like 1 year rollout to introduce this new technology. Like we just did it. It was successful. We survived. But like, why would we go back to the old way of like, we need to do a lot of very rigid bureaucratic processes to do this, as opposed to like focusing on what's really important, having a sense of urgency and really being able to drive forward. And I think that'll be interesting to watch because people will be conditioned, and that'll be like the new pace of business. And I think, some of this may not be sustainable because I think a lot of people are running on fumes these days just because there's so much going on. But I think there will be the new norm, and I think that will involve more rapid adoption of technology solutions. And I think the Power Platform it's naturally well suited to do that. And I'm careful about this whole like low code, pro code thing. I always look at this platform as like a democratized platform. It provides democratized access to building solutions. And regardless of your role in a company, if you're passionate about solving that problem, the tools will be there. And I think we will see even more and more growth in this area because more people will be exposed to it.
Oh, definitely. I think that's kind of the Facebook approach, really, isn't it? It's the hacker ethos. It's the kind of done is better than perfect. It's roll stuff out, progressively improve on it, and I quite like that. We've been kind of trying to work that way a lot anyway, and I'm seeing more acceptance of that. Obviously, that doesn't take away from proper design, proper software engineering background. And I think that's something that can often be missed on the Power Platform. Is people do jump into things without really thinking through what they're trying to build. Application still needs that software engineering aspect. The other bit I'm interested in there is the new normal, and we've covered this before actually. If people have watched any of the videos before, what's the new normal? What are people going to take forward? And also, how likely are people to think that it's going to be the new normal but slip back to old habits? How long do we need to be in this situation to develop muscle memory that it does become the new normal and get carried forward?
I think that's a very difficult question to answer at this particular point in time when we don't know how much longer this is going to go on for. I think what the one thing that bugs me at the moment is all of the shouting at government, and you're like, do you know what? These people are doing the best bloody job they can. All right, little hands may not be, but everyone else is doing a fantastic job. He's doing tremendous work. but like, I just, all I think about, Ken, is that like up until now, IT has been in waterfall mode, and they've just switched agile on. And it's like those bureaucratic kind of hoop jumping processes, like people are actually surprisingly good at technology. There are some skeptics that you have to help. And I was on a call a few days ago with some awesome people, and they were talking about actually like the people who really needed help with technology in this crisis have not been people who sit in front of a computer all day, right? They've been people who don't have technology, who need to learn how to turn Teams on. They've never used Teams before. They need to learn a bit better use of email, use these new digital tools. But everyone else has just kind of ramped up and cracked on. I think a lot of businesses sit there, and I can honestly, my ex CEO, my ex managing director, he would be sitting there. I can see him in 3 years' time, pointing his finger and saying, "Well, look, you did this in COVID in 2 months, and you got this out the door. Why is it taking you a year and a half to do the same thing now?" Right? You having me over? He'd lay it down straight, because it's like, if we can do it, if we can move heaven and earth, like you saw it in the bus industry all the time and travel all the time. When there was an accident, right? When everything was falling apart, the business just worked like clockwork. Like, it was just beautiful how perfect the whole scenario was. But as soon as you got into business as usual and there was nothing going on, everyone's sitting around going, "I've got no crisis. I've got nothing to address. I've got no big thing." And I sort platform. Of hope, yeah. A burning fire really does get people around it very fast. I just hope that we can find things when this is over to address that bring everyone together. And I think it's the collaboration side of things, where we all got a common enemy, we've all got a common goal all of a sudden, that's really unified people. It's unified businesses as well, because it's one problem to solve at one time. And I hope that they take that forward and say, look, as this progresses, they start saying, rather than trying to tackle all of the IT issues or all of the technology issues, they just tackle this one, they tackle it well, they move on, and there's a cadence that happens like that. Because I think there's a propensity in too many companies to try and do everything at once. And IT departments around the world, they're always kind of like, they've got virus hacks going over here, they've got an audit, they've got InfoSec sitting over their shoulder throwing rocks at them, and they've got some ERP thing going on, they've got some on-prem problem and all that kind of stuff. There's all this noise, and they don't know which thing to pick and solve at any one time. And this has been great, because it's been, we need to fix this thing, then we're going to fix that thing, and it's good because the crisis is there. They've had the authority, the big stick to go, yeah, I can actually do that one now. I think that's the huge change that's happened.
I wonder if anyone will come out and realise they've created a monster or created a mess, or if people are going to regret some of the apps they do. Maybe they introduce data protection or security issues I hadn't thought about, because I had been more rapid. So I wonder if anyone's going to come out and say, do you know, actually, maybe we were a little bit too gung-ho because we did it without really thinking about it. I hope not.
But that's how Intel was so successful. Like, Intel say, let chaos reign, and then reign in chaos, right? Yeah. And do you know what? Like, anything that was done with the right intentions at the moment is the right thing to do, right? Yeah. And in hindsight, we'll have all the time in the world to critique it and throw rocks at politicians and IT administrators and InfoSec people. But yeah, we just need to crack on and get it done and keep that entrepreneurial mindset going after this happens.
Definitely. So I think we're kind of running on time at the moment, so I don't want to keep the video too long. So I'm just curious then, just to kind of finish off some thoughts and ideas. So if people are kind of inspired about how to actually go and start using the Power Platform if they haven't used it previously. So I guess, Sarah, do you want to give us some views on how people get started with the Power Platform, what they can do, some things they should think about?
Well, if I would say, like, app in a day, virtual apps in a day are run often now. Probably in like the training sites, Microsoft, they're actually really, really good. So if you want to get your hands dirty and do it on your own, the training is awesome.
Nice. Good. So any parting thoughts, best practices, any kind of tips from people to get going?
Yeah, don't judge our middles. Don't judge your beginning by our middle. Yeah, basically.
I like that. Think about that over. I like that idea, actually, yeah.
There is also flow in a day. I'll just point that out. And dashboard in a day. And Power Virtual Agent in a day. So lots of in-a-day workshops, all available on to download for anybody who wants them. You don't have to go through a curated training course, although you will have some awesome instructors, no doubt, on those Microsoft curated courses. But if you do decide to do them, and you get stuck midway through building your IT laptop requesting app, do reach out to the community, because we've all probably done it, and we'll be able to help you through the problems.
So Ken, from your experience, any parting thoughts, best practices, tips for people to get started, get going?
Well, I would just say, like, the community in the Power Platform is second to none. Like, I've never seen anything quite like it. So do reach out over Twitter, do engage, do attend these user groups that exist. A lot of them are now going virtual, which is sort of good and bad, but there's a lot of opportunities to get plugged in and start interacting with your local communities. And then the other thing is, go to YouTube and really start watching a lot of the videos. There's a ton of great content out there, and you're bound to find someone that has run into the problem before and has been willing to share their learnings with others. And then go ahead and take advantage of that, and then pay it forward by communicating back, or by contributing back to the community, whether that's in the community sites or just social media, blogs, etc.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, for someone who's been around sort of the SharePoint community from the very, very early days, and that was a great start of people who had no documentation and came together and open and share. And I think this has been like a revitalized energy in the community, and it's one of the best communities I've seen Power Platform. So I think it's really good. Lots of people just willing to help for no personal gain as well. So it's it's nice to see. Good. Okay. Well, thank you very much, everyone. I think we'll call wraps there. I think we're on time, but I really appreciate all your input. Some very interesting information and ideas and thoughts there. So I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. And we'll let everyone go.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining the Isolation Conversation. Visit our website www.thisisattollo.com for latest information, or hit the subscribe button and the like button to make sure you never miss an episode. Whilst you're at it, if you found value in this episode, we'd really appreciate you leaving a comment below or sharing a link to the show with your friends and colleagues, and that would really help us out. Be sure to tune in next week for our next episode, and until then, it's a huge thanks from me for watching.